Ladies and gents, and this is The Emperor of Man, The Rise of Humanity, Warhammer 40,000 lore/history by the channel Lutin09. This is part 2. I wrote part 1 I guess a few days ago, in which we learned different, stories about how Emperor of Man came to be, right? The shaman theory, which I love the most. But yeah, overall it's just awesome. Also the old ones one is kind of interesting too, but I think shaman one feels like more, I guess, fun to me because it has so many layers to it, and apparently that's kind of canon too, right? I mean, people think of it as canon, so yeah. So let's watch this one. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe. Check out the reaction today. There's a link in the description. Check out the cast for plays like Warhammer 40k playlist with all my Warhammer 40k reactions in it. Internet historian, history, yeah. And let's watch this one.
As we reach the 15th millennium, humanity would enter a golden age of technology. This would be the highest point in mankind's technological achievements. It would last for some 10,000 years, and humanity continued its rise in technology, science and power, spreading and colonizing mankind all across the Milky Way galaxy. We could create our first galactic empire, ruled from Earth, the homeworld, and establish massive trade networks that further powered expansion and advancement. This earlier period in the Age of Technology has a subtitle known as the Stellar Exodus. This marks the time when humanity made its first colonies on other worlds, and also beyond the solar system. These initial colonies were reached using the ships that were still only capable of sublight speeds and were restricted by this, as well as our developing but limited knowledge of building these vast scale ships. When these ships reached their destination though, they would be then slowly deconstructed and the materials used to build the colonies. Some would become manufactorums capable of producing massive war machines, or then back then defensive machines, things such as Imperial Knights and even Titans, which the colonies would use to defend themselves against the dangers of the galaxy.
Oh, that's such a good detail. I love that they actually used the ship to build the colony, use that material, they deconstruct the ship, because obviously they reached their goal. There is no plan to going back. So they would just deconstruct the ship and basically create these kind of defenses, titans, build colonies.
In a comparable way to early colonies on Earth, this meant they had to be self-sufficient, and due to the large timescales involved before anyone would likely reach out to them again, they would develop their own cultures and languages, largely influenced by the noble families established on these interstellar voyages, as well as physical elements on the new homeworld. The planet's characteristics would also shape the way in which their societies would evolve. Now, some 6,000 years later, around the period of Millennium 21, mankind now began a process of militarization. It is not known who or for what reason created this process or started it off, but along with our expansion and colonization of planets, we also began to expand and develop our weapons and forces. Fragments of what was developed during this age of technology, such as Imperial Knights, Titans, Land Raider designs and so on, would later be recovered by the Imperium far into the future. The largest proportion, however, would be lost to the tides of time, and we can only imagine or hope to continue recovering these lost and most powerful of technologies in the 41st millennium.
Also, there is still promise of finding technologies, because obviously we haven't found everything that was lost. So that is potential to, I guess, build the lore even more deep, that in the 41st millennium people could discover some powerful technology basically. I mean, and why they started to do more militarize, I guess, it's a Fermi paradox type of thing, right? If civilization, colonize, they might run out of places to colonize, and they might actually start to kill each other for the planets. So I don't know, but there could be a threat of anything, right? They might be, running up the defenses, militarizing, I guess, for the defense's sake, who knows.
Humanity had risen to a period of immense power through our technology, and whilst the Emperor of Man existed, he had not made himself known to mankind. He continued to bide his time, lying in the shadows, studying, planning, observing. The very fact that the Emperor is one of the few who would live through this time and on into the Age of the Imperium, and this would then have far-reaching implications for humanity, as the Emperor would carry his knowledge and strength of this golden age into a time when none would recall it. and where it would be of critical importance to our survival. For the Emperor, he would use this knowledge of the age of technology to bring humanity back to a glimmer of what once had been.
And put himself on the basically head of the table, so to speak. Use that as basically a motivation, right? The people all make him the emperor.
In the thousands of years where humanity established its first interstellar empire, we would become, as much as the Eldar, supremely dependent on technology. Humankind had risen to a level of godlike understanding, and this was embraced and practiced by the people of the time.
Really?
The Empire of Mankind was seen as a bastion of technological achievement and began to use a new class of humans entitled the Navigators to...
I mean, at the level of Eldars, humans reached the level of the Eldars. So why didn't humans go to the debauchery route?
expand our reach and use the newly discovered warp to travel beyond the distances of existing star drives and cover vast distances in a short time. A navigator's role is to, as the name suggests, protect and guide a ship through the tides and dangers of the warp. Eventually, over time, humanity would find the warp had become too turbulent to traverse. But in this time, navigators, they're not strictly psychers as such. They possess a special gene called, unsurprisingly, the navigator gene. They also possess other abnormal characteristics, including a third eye in the forehead, as well as some more alien appearances such as no pupils in their human eyes and translucent skin, as well as maybe larger than normal appendages. Their origin is believed to have not been a natural development, but to have come about through genetic experimentation and engineering in this period of the age of technology.
Makes sense.
It was likely that mankind discovered the warp and that it could be utilized for crossings, but that required a safe means to traverse it and looked to create a solution to that problem. Mankind's age of expansion and technological glory across the galaxy would lead to many worlds requiring their own localized defense forces. In this time, humanity's mastery of technology was largely unequaled, and this would be employed in the defense and relative growth of the colonies. One of these defense forces, one of the most powerful of them, would be the Imperial Knights. These were colossal war machines that towered over all they surveyed on a battlefield. They were built with the knowledge of the Golden Age of technology, and these giants survived until the Imperial Age, but they can essentially no longer be constructed from scratch. And as is often the case with technology in the Imperium, it is now merely maintained. The Imperial Knights themselves were operated by nobles from the colony worlds who would be entombed within them.
I like how this is, even then, is so much expensive to make them, that they are maintained, right? They are not basically just made left and right, like how we have nuclear, I guess, whatever they're called, massive nuclear submarines that we have, submarine ships, right? Forgot the name, what they're called, right? But, some major powers have certain amount of those ships, and those are so costly to make. I mean, people are not going to just scrap them and make them again, right? So this is that level of equipment.
They are sworn to protect their citizens from all Xenos threats and the endless nightmares in the universe. As the Knights would advance into the later ages, they continued their noble values and morals. Some of the Knights are the most selfless and dedicated forces within the Imperium, as well as being some of the oldest. As with most technology from the Dark or Golden Age technology, the Knights are immensely powerful, allowing them to run and fight as much as a dreadnought would fight, but on a much larger scale. These ancient heroes have fought thousands of battles across millennia and stand ready to defend Imperial citizens and support Astartes anywhere in the galaxy. After the Knights we have the Titans, and Titans are the epic war machines of the Imperium. A Knight and the smallest Titan can be anything like 9-10 meters, but the big Titans can be anything up to 50 meters. They are gargantuan death machines. Many people believe that the Mechanicum were originally responsible for creating the Titans. This is not strictly correct. They do construct some Titans, but many they simply maintain. This is because the technology used to create Titans is very, very old, and like many things in the universe of Warhammer 40,000 for the Imperium, a lot of technology is merely maintained because of its complexity. Simpler devices are constructed, but this happens less and less. But the Mechanicum do create some Titans for the Imperium. Originally, the Mechanicus found versions that were completely autonomous, created in the golden age of technology. And the largest Titan so far discovered was upon the lost forge world of Charania. It was a completely autonomous war machine and was dubbed the Castigator class Titan. Its schematic was apparently also contained within a standard template construct on this planet, and it was far superior to any class of Titan utilised by the Adeptus Mechanicus or any other intelligent race in the galaxy. This was
I love that, right? The Mechanicus, basically Martians people, like I like to call them. It's easier to say it. The Martians who create all the shit. Even they are maintaining Titans because even they don't know how to, I guess, make it since it's way too old technology. And basically they have this engineering mind, but it's the process is so complex. I don't know. I mean, to me it feels like they are kind of superstitious bunch, right? They kind of fear things. That's why they let certain machines just run off and doesn't even shut off, because they fear it might not turn on again because the guy who made it is dead or something like that. That kind of paint a picture in my head how these people are. But they are also engineering masterminds. So maybe if they take few Titans, take them apart, they might get the knowledge of how to build all the Titans. But they are just afraid, so they probably won't do it. I guess that's the case there.
So far the only known discovered Castigator class Titan, but it was subsequently destroyed by Imperial Grey Knights. Grey Knights are the secretive and unbreakable order of Astartes warriors dedicated to the protection of the Imperium from the very darkest foes that humanity faces in the 41st millennium. Now, the portion of the STC database containing the data for the manufacture of the Castigator class Titan was also destroyed by the Mechanicus. It possessed AI, which is strictly outlawed and heretical within the Imperium. Secondly, it had somehow long ago been corrupted by living chaos energy, and for this reason it could obviously no longer be supported. Imperial records of this event, though, note that the cost of life and resources required to destroy this Titan monstrosity was severe.
What?
The key point here, though, is that mankind was developing machines in the golden age of technology that would never again be equalled. They could be merely copied, emulated, or used as a template to work from in the future. But our level of knowledge, our rules and guides on what could be created, due in part to events that were yet to come, would very much limit humanity's advancement in the millennia that lay ahead. I mentioned a moment ago something called an STC. This denotes a device known as a standard template construct. These are one of the single most valuable objects in the galaxy for the Imperium, and their importance was no less during the Age of Technology. So what is an STC? STC systems were advanced AI computers created during the Golden or Dark Age of Technology, and are said to have contained the sum total of human, scientific and technological knowledge. STCs were created when human interstellar civilization was at its technological peak. Their original purpose was to enable colonists to survive on the new worlds they arrived upon, as they could not carry securely the mass amount of knowledge gained by humanity at this time, and even if they could, they might not have people capable of understanding how to utilize this. The STC...
I see, apparently BioWare used this Warhammer, that knowledge too, in the new Mass Effect Andromeda. How we go to the Andromeda with AIs. Every Pathfinder has AIs with them. So basically, this is kind of similar, so I can kind of paint the picture with the AI there.
Solve this problem. It enabled the colonies to access all of humanity's knowledge and display it in a way for them to be able to create anything they needed from the resources available and solve any issue that could arise for them on the new home worlds, no matter the geography, resource limitations or climate. This would enable them to build anything from a simple lasgun to a fortified bunker, massive war machines, or an atmospheric processor.
Oh god, that is so similar to Andromeda. The AI is used to scan and tackle issues. I bet BioWare and their developers are massive fan of Warhammer 40k, because so far this is what I've been gathering. How Krogans are and everything, right? It feels very similar.
STC systems possess the ability to not just store information, but also to produce new designs to meet changing circumstances. They are immensely powerful sources of information and power, and consequently the Imperium places a high value on obtaining these lost relics of ancient knowledge. Even though now, after many thousands of years had passed, most of the discovered STCs are damaged to the point they only contain fragments of their former stored information. But Imperial forces will still use any means or resources necessary to obtain an STC once it has been discovered, even if this means the sacrifice of legions of military or civilian Imperial citizens. From the Golden Age of technology...
I mean, that's kind of understandable, am I right? Because this is about the survival of the entire human species. Right now it feels doomed, right? I mean, the old technology is gone. Whatever fragmented technology is left, we are using that in 41st millennia. The threats are rising constantly. Humanity feels like it's basically doomed. So around this time, if you can find these STCs and basically has a hope to find old knowledge that is lost, it could literally transform the entire species. I mean, if you have to sacrifice something here and there, people will be like, yeah, that's understandable. Pursuit of old knowledge that could basically, make sure the entire species survive. That's important.
And into the ages to come, these valuable systems will be lost or destroyed, so that now in the age of the Imperium they have become beyond rare, almost just a legend. So the consequent discovery of remnants of any new technology from the Dark Age of technology puts an STC's value to humanity beyond estimation. The little knowledge that has been recovered from damaged STC units is then utilised, copied and stored by the tech priests of the Adeptus Mechanicus, who are based deep on the primary forge homeworld of Mars. They believe that STCs are the most holy of artifacts and will seek and protect them at any cost.
Okay, they think it's holy. Okay.
This little divergence is an important one because an STC recovery, no matter its state of repair, still remains as one of the most important objectives for Imperial forces in the 41st millennium. The holy grail of this quest, though, although unlikely, would be to recover an intact STC, thereby gifting the Imperium all of the stored knowledge of mankind from the Golden Age of technology.
Yeah.
If the Imperium were able to recover an STC of this standard, it would catapult the existing human society into becoming yet again one of the most advanced and significantly, if not the most powerful state in the galaxy.
Okay, I'm pausing way too much, but I have to. Basically, humanity reached the Eldar level, the way Eldar became way too successful and then basically destroyed themselves. Eldars destroyed themselves. But if humans can find one intact, STC, basically that's all the knowledge of the past. They could literally, with the numbers they have right now, right? I mean, there is no shortage of human numbers, right? So with the numbers they have right now, they could literally transform their society into that level of advanced one. And they would be the only OP society like that. Because Eldars are no longer what they used to be after the creation of Slaanesh. And everybody is kind of not at that level. Then, I guess only threat, Imperium would have is, I guess, Catans, not Catans, because Catans are, buried down. I don't know. Some news, I guess, aliens that somebody would find like Catans or something. Or maybe when Catans return for some whatever reason, somebody assembles them or whatever. Or chaos. But in the end, the Imperium would be the most powerful species. I mean, no contest type of level, right? They could basically fuck up any orcs or anything. Somewhat. Orcs has power of, imagination. I don't know. I'm trying to think here, like, this would basically make Imperium really strong, but the way Warhammer 40k lore is constructed, to me, it's like anytime I think, oh, they could fuck up the orcs, but then suddenly I remember, wait a minute, but orcs have the power of imagination. I mean, that's way too OP that nothing can offset that. So,
The STC Crusade also explains in part about the state of technology and development of the Imperium, in that much of the knowledge regarding tech is replicated or learned rather than invented and created. Although new tech does come along, it's not overtly specified why so little resources are put into research now. It could be speculated though, however, that mankind relied so strongly upon the Emperor in the last 10 millennia that now they believe only he is capable of directing mankind.
Come on, in the age of there is only war, who's gonna come up with this kind of scientific technology? You need a good environment for minds to think and come up with innovations. Thriving societies come up with innovation. Where Germany was on its peak That's when you saw all the Albert Einstein and all the scientists that came forth from there. Whenever a country or any civilization is thriving and is happy and not at war all the time, that's when the innovation happens, because people have time to think about this shit. If everything is constant at war, there will be no new, noticeable inventions. So even if they put resource into that, every area is at war. Which person is going to sit down and think about all these scientific inventions when they are probably are part of Imperial Guard or something?
Mankind's advancement, and they solely focus on maintaining him and maintaining the state of Imperial affairs. So we return to our story, and at this time in the golden age of technology, humanity continues to expand across the galaxy. Initially slowly, as the gigantic starships we crafted were incapable of using the warp to traverse space. And as we learned previous, they took generations to reach their destination. They were essentially travelling worlds, similar to the Eldar craft world of the 41st millennium. When these ships reached their destination, they would slowly be deconstructed, and their materials could be used to create massive war machines such as the Imperial Knights and Titans, which the colony could use to defend themselves against the dangers of the galaxy. Dangers such as the Eldar and Orcs, who were first discovered in this period as a result of our reaching out beyond our own system to more regularly explore the galaxy. However, interestingly, during this time, humanity was actually considered more powerful than it is in the 41st millennium.
Well,
the
yeah.
strength was mainly due to our technology rather than actual physical forces, such as Astartes, who did not exist in this age.
First of all, knowledge is lost, so you don't know if there is some kind of a massive force was there. Maybe not at the militarized level that is in the 41st millennia, but with the technology, prosperity, and the money that probably they had, right? Because of the prosperity and how they were thriving, they could have had the force that rivals the current 41st millennia force, and the technology that definitely is way too powerful. Obviously, they would be way too OP at the time.
Science was humanity's primary religion, and the society of man perceived itself as having reached a time where no one could be a real challenge to us. To a degree, this was actually true, so much so that the Xenos races of Eldar and Orc actually signed non-aggression pacts with mankind, which seems bizarre from the Orc point of view, but there we are. The discovery and
Back up there. Did I miss something? What the fuck?
To us. To a degree, this was actually true, so much so that the Xenos races of Eldar and Orc actually signed non-aggression pacts with mankind, which seems bizarre from
Orcs? Orcs signed the treaty. Don't they just want to smash? I remember somebody saying that orcs were not always the way they are right now. At once, orcs were more smarter people. Were they that around this age? Because I'm pretty sure that would be really old time, right? Not around this age, even before the humans were discovered. In 21st millennia, I don't think that would be the case. So why would the orcs sign that? I mean, I guess one way to think is orcs love to fight, but they are not that stupid. If some entity is way too OP for them, I guess they would see it and basically sign the pact like, okay, we don't want to fight you. We want to fight, but we don't want to just die left and right because you're way too powerful. So this basically answers the question that I had before, like power of imagination versus the very advanced humanity. Who would win? Apparently humanity, because that's what happened. Orcs like, oh, we don't want to touch this shit. And Eldar with their kind of ego, right? Like we are superior race. Even they had to, to basically write the treaty. I mean, humans were that fucking powerful.
From the Orc point of view, but there we are. The discovery and use of interstellar drives, that is, an engine enabling cross-warp travel, now powered humanity's expansion and domination of the galaxy forward. A federated government was formed, enabling us to create a strong trade community and, most importantly, remain unified and powerful throughout our colonies spread across the galaxy, aiding and supporting where necessary with either materials, logistics or military. The exact form and nature of this federation is unknown from this time, as so much knowledge and history was lost. To speculate though, it seems likely that from the way in which humans would live at this time, the Federation would have focused more on discovery, science and working to better humanity, as well as supporting our widespread colonies. As the society societies we had seeded across the galaxy grew stronger and more developed, most humans would live long, peaceful lives where menial actions were carried out by automation, leaving people time to indulge in their own lives and dedicate themselves to the glorious expansion of mankind. This golden age of peace bears a stark contrast to the unforgiving brutality of the 41st millennium, the Imperium where many citizens are now born into lives that are shorter, work-driven, and even hellish by comparison.
Oh.
Back with our timeline though, and although navigators had now been discovered and enabled interstellar travel, psychers, that is humans with strong psychic ability, had for the longest time evaded or simply passed undetected. It would be in the age of technology where this new class of human would finally be identified. These psychers seemingly largely avoided the demonic possessions which had occurred for the old ones, Orc and Eldar. It is unclear why this would be, but again you may speculate that the Emperor had a role to play in guiding and shielding humanity through this time. As we know, he had always lain in the shadows, ensuring our safety and creating small influence until he felt it was necessary to come to the fore.
Oh, that's so good. I can only imagine this time around where Emperor is working in the backgrounds, making sure the psychers don't succumb to the demonic possession and shit. Doing certain things, right? Plotting certain things, doing certain large-scale things that nobody knows because he's working in the shadows. Just to make sure the psychers don't basically fall into these demonic possessions and make sure the dominoes don't fall to destroy the humanity, and he's there to stop it. Like how there are movies where spies and shit does certain things here and there to make sure there is no global war or something. It's similar, something like that.
Another possibility is that by comparison, the Orcs and Eldar with their more advanced psychic powers simply shone brighter. As we know, the demons of the warp are actually attracted to psychic power in real space, like moths to a lamp, and so they appeared amid the depths of the galaxy, a brighter beacon for the chaotic creatures to be attracted towards, whereas the human psychers were very early in development, their powers were less attractive. They did not.
I mean, yes, being a psyker just means you have more direct access to the warp. It makes it easier for any creatures of the warp to access that. If they have more open pathway to the warp, let's just say. And that's psychers. That's why psychers are, one of the most weakest people against demonic and, things like that. Because they have so much access to the warp. That's what makes them psychers, right?
Not stand out so much. These psychic mutations were initially limited to only a few individuals per billion or so humans, but toward the end of the age of technology, psychers would appear throughout the colonies more widespread than ever before. And some colonies who were advanced and open-minded, they could see the potential advantages brought by human psychers, and they were protected and allowed to develop and explore their abilities. However, on other, less advanced human colonies, they were often killed and hunted down as the people here feared rather than embraced their divergent powers, much of, similar to witch hunts. As I hinted at earlier, one of the reasons during the golden age of technology that humanity was able to not only survive, but stretch itself out to colonize and conquer worlds in the galaxy, not to mention defending itself against aggressive Xenos, would be due to their reliance on AI and the machine creations of the time. However, as nearly all science fiction dictates, these primary sentient machines in the Human Galactic Federation would be known as the Men of Iron, and they would stereotypically turn on their creators and enter us into a cataclysmic war. An STC containing a template for the Men of Iron was discovered by Imperial forces on a Chaos-controlled world. It became apparent that much as the Castigator-class Titan, the Men of Iron here had also been corrupted by Chaos, and the AI of these creations was sentient. So we can perhaps speculate that the Men of Iron initially resented their human creators, but combined with this were also corrupted, possibly by Chaos, which at the time was relatively unknown to mankind, hence the lack of any documentation to support such speculation. It is, however, a possibility and stacks up with what we know of the corruptibility of human AI creations. Also, the intent of the dark forces of Chaos.
Can Chaos corrupt AI though? Does AI has access to the warp?
To obliterate humanity once it became aware of its existence. Regardless of the reason though, this war was one of the greatest disasters to befall humanity and would rage for centuries. The exact length of the war is not recorded. The conflict was eventually won by humanity, but at a great cost. The damage caused by this conflict to interstellar human society was hugely destructive. We would lose masses of knowledge and technology, not to mention devastating humanity's economic strength and political unity. The war would begin the series of events that would lead into the collapse of the Federation of Humanity at the end of the Age of Technology. As so often is the case, very little information exists from this time, largely due to the Imperium being so wary of a similar disaster happening again. And this is why, amongst the Imperium and mankind, you'll find only the simplest forms of AI. It is viewed as being exceptionally dangerous technology and is strictly outlawed. A substitute is often
Even that shit is very similar to Mass Effect.
Combine human and machine into mindless drone-like beings known as servitors. Servitors are the Imperium's cybernetic servants, lacking true self-awareness, and are created from the bodies of either condemned criminals who are unpleasantly lobotomized, or vat-grown humanoids whose bodies and brains are partially replaced with machine systems. As a result of this catastrophic conflict between the men of iron and humanity in the golden age of technology, it is now considered one of the most severe crimes in Imperial society to develop a self-aware, artificially intelligent machine. It is just considered too dangerous to even consider. Around Millennium 23, the warp was taking hold of psychers and wreaking havoc on human colonies. Feudal night worlds were more conservative and less abiding of psychers, as we said previously, who had hunted them down. These would fare better than the others, who had adopted them more open-mindedly at the time. The knights in their semi-titan armour would battle massive warp entities and serve to protect the planet's human population, abiding to their strict code of feudal discipline and ability. Very often, they would be the bastions that protected mankind's worlds, and their importance cannot be underestimated at this time. As is often the case in history, it is not one, but a series of disasters that leads to total ruination, and this was no exception for the glorious empire humanity had established during the Dark Age of technology. Whilst it was struggling to recover from a collapse in its unity, as well as destruction of many of its resources and its ability to trade efficiently with other worlds, a new disaster would occur that would see the end of humanity's golden age and instead throw us further into near total annihilation. The race of man would never again reach this golden pinnacle of technological achievement.
The Age of Strife. Yeah, so regarding the AI thing, I know there are certain assassins, right? Those assassins who has no access to the warp. So to every single person, whenever they see them, they give this presence that terrifies them because of that, because they have no access to the warp. So we know that access to the warp is not just inevitable in every creature. So are we sure that AIs have access to the warp? And if AI doesn't have that, because they are artificial intelligence created by men, if they don't have access to the warp, how can chaos corrupt them? I don't know. So, but apparently, what was that, Man of Iron? What was that? The war, Man of Iron. That was the starting downfall of the humanity. From there, multiple wars, and basically we're gonna come to the age of the current times, I guess, where lots of technology gets lost. But yeah. Alright people, that was the golden age of man, right? The golden and dark age of technology for men, where basically humans were so powerful that even orcs like fuck that shit and basically write the treaties with the humans. But next time we're gonna see the Age of Strife. This video is in detail. I love how I'm learning more detailed things than I've watched the other videos, like from Bricky and Temple Institute. This is very much in detail. I love that. It's only halfway there. The entire half video is left, and then the other second part, which is 1.5 hours long. And this is all on the Imperium of Man, Emperor of Man, basically Imperium. Alright, if you like my reaction, don't forget to like, subscribe, check out the reaction I did, there's a link in the description. Check out the cast for different playlists like Warhammer 40k reaction with all my Warhammer 40k videos. Then, John Tron reactions, internet historian, history. Yeah, I'll see you next time.